Today we are welcoming Becky Morton to the podcast, the Principal of Further Education at ACM, the Academy of Contemporary Music. She's a seasoned performer and long-time educator, and we dig into what it takes to create a sustainable career in this pop rock genre, particularly taking an academic route in. Off the back of a previous episode with April Young, we talk about the trends that Becky is seeing coming into ACM, some of the repertoire and artists that we can look to help us find our authentic sound here, what it means to create a rock vocal, and what singers really need to know moving into this industry. Becky Morton, we're ready when you are. Imagine that you're stranded on an island and there's only one song from this pop rock genre that you can have played the whole time you're stranded. What would it be and why?
Oh Lord. At the moment, because it would change tomorrow, it would probably be Just Like Heaven by The Cure. Because if I'm stranded on a desert island by myself, I want a song that makes me happy, but also it makes me fulfilled as well, that I can sing along to and know all the words, but also that has loads of like really great memory connections with it as well. That would be my choice today.
I would love a good old banger like Meatloaf, I'd Do Anything for Love.
Yeah, no, and that's really long as well. But yeah, you'd have to have the album version where the girl bit at the end is like 3 times as long. So
Yes, perfect. Perfect. You take The Cure, I'll take Meatloaf, and we are set. When you're looking back at your journey so far, the performing that you've done, the teaching that you do, the mentoring that you do, what's been the most rewarding part?
I'm going to say all of it, which is,
That's a cop out.
no, I know. I was going to say a bit weedy, but I think it's almost served me as my life has progressed and changed. Obviously, when I was touring and recording and doing loads and loads of performing, that just kind of filled my life, and it was amazing. And I got to go all over the world and work with some really awesome people, do some really like unusual things and fun things, and hard work as well. And like at the time I was teaching as well, but that was kind of quite secondary. And then obviously, life changes, got married, had a baby, bought a house, all of that kind of thing, and you can't just go off and do what I couldn't. I know some people do and it works perfectly, but it didn't. So then I got more involved in the teaching. I was always at ACM. I've been at ACM for like 25 years or something like that, which is a long time, obviously. But I just got more involved in ACM and more involved in FE, in diploma. And now, because I still perform now, I still do loads of gigs, I still record, but not as much, obviously. And I love working with my diploma students. It's such a perfect age. They've just finished school, they're finding their feet, they're just trying out loads of things, but they're still really interested to learn. And I don't know, I find that really rewarding now, but just because I think they're so great. It just sounds really cheesy, but it's true.
Can you just tell us what your role as principal of FE actually entails at ACM?
So yeah, I run the diploma program. So that's our 16 to 19-year-old learners. We deliver a music program and a games development program. So basically, I oversee all of that, but I've got a fantastic team around me. Each program pathway has like a level leader. So like a year one leader. We have to do GCSEs as well. And so overseeing that, but so designing the curriculum, writing the briefs, but also doing outreach. Our awarding body is UAL, and we work really closely with UAL. So, our students get chosen to be in their festivals. So it's not just delivering a further education music program. There's loads to it. I work really closely with the guys in Industry Link at ACM, so having masterclasses, and we do external showcases. in the local area, but also going up to London. Yeah, lots of things.
What are the benefits and the challenges, do you think, for a singer going on an academic route into the music industry versus not? And if I may just add on something to that question as well, which is the diploma students, as you say, they go in at 16. So what's the advantage for them to go and do that as a diploma straight after school than, say, going down maybe a typical route of getting some A levels in other areas and then moving on to higher education?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think particularly for the music industry, that obviously if you're going to go into the pop world, being young is like a real benefit. What you will learn on diploma is, you know, how to collaborate properly, how to work with a band, how to work with a producer, you know, just all of those relationships in the musical world, in industry, that you need to know and you need to understand how to be somebody that somebody wants in their band, that wants to work with. So relationships, all of that stuff. But also, like with our qualification, it's the equivalent of three A levels you end up with after the 2 years. So it's still an access course. So you can go to university, but you can also go straight into industry. And what we try and do is it's project-based learning. So you don't sit and do exams, and you do 4 projects a year, and we set them, but within that you've got options for your own creativity as well, so you can follow like and develop your own path. But also we're pushing you all the time to think about other things. I think sometimes, and it's not the case at all for every person who doesn't do a music qualification, I think sometimes you kind of get a bit stuck where you are, and like kind of often, you know, creative types are a bit afraid to kind of step out or show something new and things like that, or try something new, and we kind of make them do it. So and then they just discover things that they didn't even know they could do. We have, you know, like a lot of our producers come in and they just like create beats, so they do jungle and stuff like that, and then we get them to rescore a video clip in a DAW, and they're like, oh my God, I never even thought that I could do this. And it's just, you know, giving them more options. But, you know, everybody's different. A lot of our students do go on to higher education. It's about 50-50. So some will just stop and do something completely different. They've done music for 2 years and now they want to, I don't know, be a lawyer or something like that. But, you know, they've got enough UCAS points from us to do that. But a lot of our students, about half, will go into higher education in music. A lot of them continue on to ACM, but some will go to conservatoire or to a more traditional university. And the other half will go straight into like industry or the workplace. And yeah, we just equip them really well to understand how to be a musician, I think, and more of a freelance musician, but how to be an artist, how to talk to A&R people. We do like music business, just having a bit of more of an understanding rather than just finding it all out for yourself. There's also your peers, the people that you're with for the 2 years. They're your initial contacts in the music industry. You know, there's still people that I went to college with that I'm in contact with that I might see on a gig or might throw some work my way, you know, and it's the same thing. So they're building those relationships from 16, which again, if you didn't have like your whole cohort and your year group, it just takes a bit more time and it's a bit more difficult.
I'm sure it's quite different for everybody, but when they have reached the end of the diploma, what's sort of that next step for them to emerge straight into the music industry?
As you say, it's different for everybody. We do have contacts for like internships and apprenticeship opportunities, like in production houses or in a kind of like tour production companies and things like that. So some of our students last year went and started an apprenticeship with a production company. So they're working in the industry. We have some students who will sit in the pit in the West End shows and things like that, and then start making those relationships. And then some of our students will be going to auditions, and then some of them go into like writing, doing sync for TV and things like that. And some of them will just go into a function band or on a cruise ship. I mean, one group of our students, they left ACM and went on a cruise ship, and like 6 years later they're still doing it and just having a wonderful time. But yes, like I say, it is quite varied. I think it depends on the person as well, and how flexible they are and how much work they put into it, and not expect it to come to them too much, you know.
In the beginning, we spoke a little bit about your performance career. For you, as somebody who has lived and breathed this sort of pop rock powerhouse genre, what do you find yourself technically helping singers with in order to find their most efficient version of that?
I think, because we can look at different people and they can be all different shapes and sizes, but still kind of create this sound. So for me, it's obviously a combination of really controlled airflow. So not pushing. People think with the big sound that you have to really go for it and really push and be loud and full of volume, and you shouldn't do that at all, and that's what I used to do. Then I started having lessons about 20 years ago, and I was taught to really kind of control that volume, and then combining that with my support system. So obviously breathing well, but using my muscles and to support what I'm doing, but also placement. So not having my voice down here and having that very low larynx kind of sound, but having twang placement and working on getting that release. So the higher that I'm going, I can keep that mixed rock sound, and I'm not pushing and I'm not getting louder, but I'm just really using my my placement to be and enable me to kind of soar through my range.
Would it be really out of order, Becky, to ask you to give us a little demo?
Yeah, I can. All right, so like living easy, living free, season ticket on a one-way ride. So forward, I use, onset, I'm supporting down here and just not pushing.
And it also seems like, just from observation, that you're also getting your tongue out the way, whether you're conscious of that or not.
Yes, that was another thing that I was taught 20 years ago by Lynn. Yeah, that's a real thing for a lot of my singers that come through in this contemporary kind of pop world.
As an example, I quite like giving a nod to Adam Lambert for this, an amazing rocky singer who quite clearly has his tongue out of the way, much more in that forward high position.
Yeah.
When we're talking about vocal qualities and sort of stylistic choices, and even maybe down to the artist aesthetic themselves, how are we these days defining that as a pop rocker compared to back in the day?
I think it's always been quite varied. I personally, I think back in the day, if you think about people like Freddie Mercury and Bruce Dickinson, there was a lot more vibrato. It was almost a bit more kind of theatrical. But then at the same time, you had Ozzy Osbourne as well, who was quite opposite to that. I think what is happening now is I think it can be a lot more varied. You can a lot more variation in tonal choices. Like boys can use more falsetto and things, which like back in the 70s and stuff like that, they didn't really. But then on the other side, you've got more girls are doing more screamo sound, which again, I mean, 15 years ago you had Flyleaf doing it, but now there's a lot of girls, and it's like kind of quite an expectation for that, when that was more of like a male environment.
Much as I do every time you listen to an episode. To make sure that you don't miss out on any future episodes, make sure you subscribe, and it would be wonderful if we could get a review from you to make sure that we can keep this podcast going. My name is Lynn Hilton, and I'm the founder and one of the trainers here at Bass Training. And our goal is to help singing teachers and singers become singing teachers in a way that we didn't have when we first set out. So if you're interested in doing some training or learning more about what it means to become a singing teacher, why not book a call with me, and I can talk you through our various trainings and opportunities that we have here at Bass Training. In the meantime, we have free resources for you, so head down to the description and you'll find a link where you can download our free guide to how to assess the singer's voice. I look forward to seeing you somewhere in the BAS community. Time to get back to the podcast.
Using sort of those grittier, roughed up vocal textures for you, how could a singer go into the recording studio and use the production tools to manipulate the sound, add to the sound to really fit into that pop rock category?
Yeah. So whenever I'm recording in this genre, I will always double track, because for me, I feel that really gets a great rock vocal sound for me. For example, I think that's what Dave Grohl always records like, because I can really hear that kind of double tracking in his vocal takes. Also the use of octaves. So like, but obviously the octave a lot lower in the mix, that can really add to that rock vocal sound. And you can add in, I don't, but that's just a personal preference. I know that some artists, they will add like a grit track as well, so that will kind of layer on top of the main vocal track, just to add dynamic to what they're doing.
A lot of the time as teachers, we're searching for an eclectic range of repertoire that we can share out to singers, have fun with in the studio. What would be your top 3 songs or artists that singers of different levels and exposure to this genre could have fun with? Maybe to sort of introduce them to it, maybe then crank up a notch, and then something for that really advanced challenge.
Yeah. I think Pink is a brilliant example, and she can kind of cover all 3 in, quite early. Like her early Pink, I think, is a lot easier, and she's really developed, and her voice is really developed to, some of the stuff she's releasing now is really quite technically challenging. She's definitely somebody that I would use in my lectures, and get my students to look into. I would go back to people like Anne and Nancy Wilson from Hearts. Again, they've got brilliant rock voices, I personally think, but they again didn't rely on kind of using grit and all of these they're just really great rock singers, and they've got really big ranges again, and they've got that great release through what they're doing, and technically I think they're really good singers. Then you've got obviously Hayley Williams from Paramore. She steps it up, I think, a bit further. And then if you wanted to really get into it, then you would be possibly, and this isn't for everybody, but a lot of my students do have an interest in it, getting into the screaming, and that kind of thing, and then looking kind of like Morgan Lander from Kitty or Cheney Crab or somebody like that. But obviously, I don't think anybody should be attempting that without really solid technique, and you've got to get everything in place before you can start doing that. Otherwise, that's just where you start causing damage to what you're doing. And I will go on. So that's girls, but boys, my ultimate is Chris Cornell from Soundgarden. For me, he was and still is a phenomenal singer, just with an amazing range, but he was also a phenomenal songwriter, and it was popular rock music rather than pop, but it was in the charts, but it was like in these crazy time signatures with metric modulation and using different modes and alternative scales. It was just really pushing boundaries, all with his amazing vocal just kind of soaring over the top with emotive lyrics. It's just
Quite a fan of Chris, are we?
Yes. Oh yes, and I just get to see him twice, so that was good.
You mentioned some ideas of time signatures and that sort of thing just there. So for you, how much of this music theory knowledge and sight singing and all of that sort of theory side of things is beneficial versus required, both as maybe a student of ACM and an artist in the industry?
Obviously, it's not required at all. People can make fantastic music and be a fantastic artist with no theory knowledge at all, no ability to sight read at all. But I always say this to my singers, because obviously I teach music theory as well. I said that what we can't be is dumb singers, and that's what, unfortunately, a lot of the time we get kind of labeled as. So it's like, it's being able to go into a room full of musicians and be knowledgeable, to gain respect because you know what you're talking about, and having some good solid theory knowledge behind you will allow you to do that, and it will gain you the respect. And then you have control as an artist as well. You have control over what you're doing. You're arranging your music and you're doing it. You're not relying on somebody else to do it. So I think theory is really important. That's just my personal opinion, and I know some people will completely say no, it isn't at all, and that's fine. But I just think you can just, for the development of people as an artist and how they move within the industry, having some good solid theory knowledge is really good. I have a friend, he makes jungle tracks. I think he's 52 now, and he started learning theory when he started working at ACM, which was about 8 years ago. And he says that he just wished that he'd learnt it years ago, because it's enabled him to really develop his tracks that he's making, just having some small music theory knowledge.
What sort of level do you think we ideally need to get up to? So, like for me, I think it's really useful if a singer knows what key they're singing in, so that when they go to get the sheet music, they can recognize if they are in that original key or they need to transpose it. So having that circle of fifths, the rhymes, all of that sort of idea, being able to, follow a little bit about rhythm. Where do you think is the passable line, and what is classed as sort of extra?
As you say, it's applicable to you as an artist and you as a person. I think every singer should know what key they're working in, but also having a good understanding of how harmony works, like chord progressions, all of that kind of thing within the key that you're working in, that stuff. And then I think it gets genre specific. Obviously, if you're getting into math rock or you're going into metal and things like that, then you need to develop your theory further, because that's when you're using modes and metric modulation and things like that. So but I think just as a pop rock person, I think, like you say, just having good personal applicable music theory knowledge to what you need is absolutely fine. And with sight reading, I don't think you really need it these days, which is it's sad for me to say. I think it depends. Again, it depends on your career choice. If you're going to be a freelance musician, obviously, if you can sight sing, you will get more work. So it's really great from that perspective. But if you're being an artist, you don't need it. So
what would be the first step someone could take to be better at their sight reading if they haven't ever come across that before, or if they're just like, I really want to be able to do this, how do I get myself going?
So getting your rhythmic recognition is really important. Just reading different rhythms, being able to clap them, obviously having an understanding of how different time signatures work. But a good starting place is just really securing your intervals, because obviously if we're sight reading, we're looking at different pitches on the stave, and it's not easy like a piano where you just hit an A and da-da. You have to internally know where that A is in relation to the D that you've just been singing. So to know that it's a fifth and be able to pitch that. So practicing your intervals and your different intervals, so you've just got them really down. Most singers can do them anyway, because we pitch intervals with harmonies and things, don't we? It's just understanding that that's what we're doing and then being able to adapt it.
We recently chatted to April Young on the podcast. She wrote an article, I think it was back in 2019, about vocal trends and how that was sort of changing the training, or what it meant for the training of the singer. I'm really interested to know, is the principle of FE at ACM, and as someone with such a long career as a singer, what particular trends are you noticing from the demands of the industry in this genre and the singers sort of joining ACM, and therefore the teaching expectations in FE and HE?
Unfortunately, in my experience, almost like rock has been diminishing, particularly in female voices, you get like a couple every now and again, but a lot of the, you know, the female voices are still very influenced R&B, but we have less kind of melisma and riffing these days. It's gone a bit more straight again, which personally I think is a good thing. But but yeah, so they're very influenced by people like, it used to be Amy Winehouse, the kind of like vowel sounds and all of that kind of thing, but now it's a lot more kind of the Billie Eilish sound, so quite small and quiet but very dynamic. Less people have like a big voice at the moment, which I'm sure it will come back round again.
I don't know if I read something or heard something or something came up in terms of that, but I do wonder whether it's a case of we're still working with COVID babies. Are we still sort of helping to prize those singers out of like bedroom singing where they were doing it very quietly because they didn't want their parents, family, neighbours to hear them?
Yeah, I don't know. It is just weird. Like I'm forever saying to people, you know, you need to sing into the mic. You need to. We can't hear you over the band and things, and that they want everything to be like the mic to be turned up, and you know, like no, this needs to come more internally. And I would say the rock choices haven't actually developed that much. Our students are still performing Rage Against the Machine. They're still performing early Foo Fighters and Nirvana. They even go back to the punk era and things like that. You know, there's not, and I think maybe that's because there aren't really a lot of bands around at the moment, you know, that are influencing them. I mean, there are a few, but not really a lot of rock bands and things like that that are kind of in the mainstream at the moment. Oh, another thing is a lot of my students are doing more of an English accent now, which, you know, is quite, but especially for somebody from my era, it's quite unusual. I think we're all just like Americaning over everything. But so and I think it's great that they, you know, because it's their authenticity and things like that. But it is a bit weird if we're doing like a rock American cover in Performance Workshop and it's all in an English accent, and it's just so. And I think maybe again I'll go back to that thing. Technically, it's a bit more difficult in an English accent. But then I don't want to take it away from them because that's how they want to sing, and that's how they're being authentic and creative. So,
and then from your teaching perspective and putting together a syllabus and all of the stuff that you do with assessments and things, are you finding that that's having to change along with the trends that are coming in and out?
We review everything every year anyway. We're actually very lucky that we get like downtime over the summer when the students are off, but we're all still working, which can really allow us to delve into the curriculum and have a look at what worked. We do student surveys, so we get feedback from them as well. We're constantly developing what we're doing, and you know, the way the industry is going with the explosion of AI and things like that, you know, I think we have to do a lot more. So we're getting more into creative media, and just you can't, almost like you can't just be an artist anymore. You can't just be a singer. You have to do this and you have to do that. I did a master's in music psychology a few years ago, and my dissertation was on the pressures of the music industry in the 90s. Basically, it was all about grunge artists and why all the big ones are dead, basically, apart from Eddie Vedder. And I was doing a comparison with 90s artists to artists of today, and you know, the pressures were very different. The artists in the 90s just weren't very well looked after. We didn't have like the safeguarding, we didn't have the duty of care and all of that. They kind of just went off the rails and people let them get on with it. But nowadays, artists are a lot more looked after, but just the expectations, like the constant social media and just all of the things that they have to do to stay relevant, to stay interesting, which weren't there in the 90s. It's so we kind of have to teach that as well.
I'm really interested actually in how ACM is dealing with this AI infusion at the moment. We had Rachel Drury on the podcast for 2 parts from the Independent Society of Musicians talking about AI in the music industry and the pressures that it's putting on it. For your students, are you encouraging software like Suno and Udio and ChatGPT for lyrics, or is there like you're not allowed to use AI in your creations?
So we can't, like, as an institute, we can't just ignore it. We can't pretend it's not happening. Our students, they have to, when they submit their work, they have to do like a declaration of authenticity. And if they've used AI for anything, they have to declare how they've used it and in what element of what they've done. But we will use it in class. We even have a project where they are given an AI piece of music, which they then have to develop. Yes, so we're not trying to hide from it at all, and we're still learning. And I don't know, personally, I think it will, everything goes in circles, doesn't it? And like everybody will use AI for a while, and then they won't for a bit, and it will kind of settle down. I don't know, maybe that's naive.
When we were talking to Rachel, she was talking about how, you could use all these different things, but it's never going to replace the human experience and the fact that we want to bond with each other from a human experience. I think also, when the Kindle first came out, I was so worried that like stores like Waterstones and bookshops were completely closed down. But actually it didn't take off seemingly quite as much, because the physical art in your hands, and in this case in your ears, that you can go physically see people playing music, and there's a visceral feeling that comes with that you're just not going to get that from AI at this, hopefully, at this particular stage. So yeah, it's really interesting to know what programs are sort of doing to integrate but also protect.
Yes, yeah, and absolutely. And I'm also a massive Nick Cave fan, and just the poetry within the way he writes his lyrics and the darkness and all of that. I don't feel that AI would ever be able to capture that authenticity, or if it did, it still wouldn't be able to speak to me, because I know, well, I don't know him, but I know who Nick Cave is as a person. I know things that have happened to him, and I watch podcasts of him, and he means something to me, whereas AI doesn't.
Lastly then, Becky, what do you wish that more singers understood about building a sustainable long-term career in today's industry?
For me, I think it's the need for the graft element behind it. You have to work for this. I think we've had so many TV shows where people have been made stars for like 5 minutes or whatever, that I think people think that it's a really easy career path and you can just become a singer and life will be absolutely fine. And I think people need to understand that you have to work really hard. You will be tired. You will finish a full day's teaching, and then you'll go to a gig, or life isn't, it's not going to be easy, and you've got to work really hard. And also you've got to be adaptable. You've got to be flexible. You've got to be resilient. Resilience is an issue at the moment. I think we're getting through the other side of it. I can see in my students that our new intake, they do seem a lot more resilient. They do seem like ready to work and ready to aim high. Well, you're going to get knockbacks. It's the same industry that it was 20 years ago. You're going to be too tall for a job, or they're not going to like your voice, or however that manifests itself, and you just got to go on to the next one. And I think sometimes my students don't grasp that at the moment.
My mum used to be really quite good at that for me. Like if I came out of an audition and I'd say either I didn't get a recall or I got a recall but I didn't get the job, she'd do the whole, oh, you work so hard, how annoying. And then it would be on to the next one.
Yeah, exactly. Because you can't change it. It's not to do with you. It's just you weren't what they wanted at that particular time.
Yeah.
That's that.
And that's okay. Where can people find out more about you and the work you do and the singing and all of that stuff?
Okay, so three of my bands are on Facebook. I'm not very good at social media, but we're really making an effort because we have to, obviously. So yeah, we're The Likeness, and then we're Two's Up, and then I also do a vocal girl harmony group, like an Andrew Sisters style thing, which is completely not pop rock, but I absolutely love it. And we're called the Hooch Toots, and we go around singing at people in our vocal harmony, and that's great.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, thank you so much, Becky, and good luck with it all.
Thank you. Thank you. It was lovely to meet you, Alexa.
oh, oh.